Hi there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. So I want to talk to you today about a little incident that happened recently, a discussion I was having with a friend of mine, and it brought up a whole download that came in about what this little situation was. So I'm talking to my friend, and I don't really know her all that well. She's just more of someone that I just am getting to know, etc. And I do not mean to throw anyone under the bus or pretend like that I know everything or that I know what's best for another person. It was just an observation from the psychological profiling type of experience where I'm constantly looking at people and, trying to understand what are the dynamics and then marry that up with my energetic understanding of why am I here? How can I help this? And what am I here to learn? What am I here to teach? What is this and what's the dynamic? So I'm often in that mode most of my day. So the deal with that is that when I was talking to this person, she's very spiritually oriented. She does a lot of things to support her spiritual growth and her development, which I, champion that at every turn, absolutely. And yet, whenever I said, well, here's some thoughts on this, she's talking to me, she's asking my opinion, and so I offer her some feedback. That unsolicited feedback is rarely accepted well, so just keep out of that department. Cool. You're talking to me, you're asking me what my thoughts are on it, and I say what they are, and I also give the observation from an energetic standpoint because we speak that same language. We're on the same, topic, at least in the ballpark of understanding one another. It's not exactly apples to dump trucks at that point. And so I offer some energetic feedback as well as, that when we get kickback from certain situations after we've made a decision and we come to an agreement with ourselves of this is my new standard, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm doing, sometimes we get kickback from other people, and it can really come as a full frontal assault that we think, oh my God, I made the wrong decision, and we start doubting ourselves, etc. So I said, yes, I understand you're going through a whole lot. And you're really experiencing a whole bunch of kickback from, decisions that you've made earlier in the day, the week, the whatever, that brought you here to this new understanding of, hey, I deserve better, I want more, that of course there's going to be a little boomerang effect sometimes with the people that are around us because the opportunities to really solidify that get brought to us. And humans are very interested sometimes in just being oppositional, so it's not hard to find that aligning itself for us to be really sure that we have in fact made this new step in our awareness, made this new step in our ascension, that yes, I do stand here now, I deserve more, and I see this from a different vantage point. Well, as I was talking to her about that, she really wasn't about it. She was just giving me every reason why, the story was still going to be more important rather than coming out of the story to come to a different vantage point, that if you have put it out there that I'm at a new place in my understanding and my awareness, then let's be willing to be out there enough with our self-esteem issues and our self-worth and believing more about ourselves that we can look at that observational point and give us a whole high five, give ourselves a whole, pat on the back, etc., to say, yeah, actually that is what it is, rather than continuing to kind of slow down our progress by giving an after action review on stuff that it really doesn't matter. If we can change the perspective, which is huge, if we can change the perspective, then that means that we can observe that from a different standpoint rather than getting our self-worth, our self-esteem, our value, etc. involved in it, that it's not personal. That's simply a kickback, a boomerang of something that's coming back and saying, are you sure you meant what you meant, that you deserve more? Are you sure? Because I think that I'm going to test that for you. And I'm not a huge fan of believing that the universe tests us in that respect, that, angels are sitting around or guides are sitting around going, good God, is they're ever going to get it? Put them through a test and see if they really mean that shit. I'm not into that because that's an oppositional point of view that I just don't see the spiritual sector of what I do being that way, because it doesn't involve egos and it doesn't involve that kind of polarity and that kind of divisive thinking. And so I think of it more as that I put myself out there as saying, I have this standard, I have this new awareness, I have this something, and it's going to leave me on an empty stage for that to kind of fill in with, wait a minute, what used to be needs to keep burning off and say, no, I don't want that set, I don't want that character, I don't want that actor. What I want is my stage to be what it is, and anything that was on the old stage, oh yeah, we don't do that anymore, so I need to continue to evolve. So it's testing me in that, do I really have my feet fully grounded in this new energy? Do I have myself fully seated in what I know to be the truth for me? And while we're kind of wobbling around, nothing wrong with it. It's like riding a unicycle. You got to kind of learn how to balance it, right? That every time that we fall off the unicycle, as it were, it's not a matter of saying, oh, I'm not getting it, I'm not doing it. If you were up long enough to fall down, that means you made it that far. And however many seconds of celebration we can give ourselves, you know, that we're making progress, we're making steady progress. And sometimes we defeat our own purpose by not really giving ourselves the accolades that we deserve, especially when the outside world is not going to join us in that. They're not going to give us our flowers. They're not going to give us our props. They're not going to say high five if they're barely alive. You know, they just don't. That's not what other people are here to do. They're here to be the opposition whenever we need a test or we need to practice our new skills. Practical application of the skills that we're learning in energy means we have to step it out here on the world stage sometimes, and it can be very vulnerable, and it can be very confusing, and it can be very hostile feeling or very trying, etc. However, when I was listening to this friend of mine, and she's telling me about all this stuff that just poured in, you know, over a matter of like 48 hours, that's a lot, you know, that's a whole lot of what you're saying there, a lot of different avenues of just real roadblock looking stuff. And, you know, I said, well, what does that all mean to you? And, you know, we're having a dialogue where, okay, we're both on a spiritual angle. And so would you like me to offer you from, you know, an energetic and spiritual standpoint, you know, what I'm observing about this, because this isn't my life, you know, I'm just observing and hearing what you're saying. Would you like a, you know, a kind of an off view of this, you know, from this perspective or from a different perspective? And she said yes. And so I expressed to her that that's a lot. You know, most people do not experience within 24 hours of making some pretty significant changes in the upgrades, full moon, you know, those kinds of things, all coalescing, conspiring to get us right there. It doesn't seem that that happens, you know, without some sort of a reason, and that you've made this huge decision in your life. So you put your foot down and say, I'm going to do this. This is where I'm headed. This is what I expect. And then you've got an influx immediately of 4 or 5, 6 different things that jump up in your face that, you know, that's not a punishment. That's not a you're on the wrong track. I said, can you accept the idea that you're actually on the right track? If you were on the wrong track, it wouldn't be happening. It's when we meet sometimes that biggest resistance, or we meet the biggest flare-ups inside us or other people. For me anyway, that's been my experience. When I see that out here, I know, oh, no fear, I'm going in the right direction. Now, it doesn't mean that it automatically cures my butthurt, my fear, my lack of courage, my tears, my grief, my sadness, or whatever instantly. However, at least being willing to hear the fact that this does mean you're going in the right direction. Kate, can you accept that? And it's become easier for me to accept that, which clears out a lot of the clutter that I was hearing with my friend, that she's getting bogged down by the details of no of the story, which, hey, 808, totally get it. I understand it. However, you know, can I offer you a different perspective? And she just wasn't really interested in hearing it, which is fine. That's part of what Kate needs to do, is don't butter up your mind with somebody else's clutter. You know, don't clutter your own butter by getting involved or trying to help someone get out of theirs. That's a quick way to end up in the butter churn yourself and be worrying about my self-esteem and what don't I know? What can I do? There's nothing that I can do. However, there's nothing that she can do either if she's not willing to, any more than me or anyone else. And so being able to say, hey, can you look at this as a success story instead of, you know, the disaster that it looks like or that you think it is? Why would you automatically assume that? That's from wounding. That's from self-esteem issues, self-worth. I have no value. You know, it's all the things that every other human being struggles with. It's just that each struggle is going to look very finely tailored for the person that it's given to. It's not meant to be my struggle to do it that way. That's why it makes it easier for me to kind of observe it from a different standpoint, is that I'm not struggling with those issues. Those are not the things, not those specific details. The same issues across the board: self-esteem, self-worth, value, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of the human condition, is we're meant to understand ourselves from a very different point of view than most humans do. And so, you know, her details though, it's very easy for me to remain very clinical about the assessment of it, because it ain't me. You know, I'm not having to worry about how I'm going to do this or do that, etc. And when it is me, if I have no one around me that's willing to say, hey, can you see the success in this? Then I'm just grinding in a story. And even if I do have a person that's willing to say, hey, Kate, can you see the success in this? Can you see, don't wait, how it is that you're not just this lump of garbage that has no value, no worth, and oh dear, you know, if I'm not willing to join that idea or go into that understanding, then I'm just helping that person help me to stay in that codependency. And that's not what this game is about. That is not what it is to break free of the mind matrix, the old matrix. The divine matrix, which is the retooling, reschooling, and re-education of the mind, means that we have to dump out a lot of the old computer programming of what we grew up knowing and what we understand about what we believe to be true. There's nothing about my old life, you know, that I can believe to be true, because I've seen too many things that are brand new to me that make better sense to me. However, not until I can break free of the idea that, well, that can't possibly be true. That can't, why? You know, it's very easy to fall into the easy trap of I'm worthless, I'm terrible. That's easy to do. I like to challenge myself. So I like to say to myself, you know what? I can very easily just put myself right into the toilet at any point that I want to. I can jump right into that. No problems. How about I try something different here? And it brings up the fear. It brings up those self-esteem issues at 11:11. It brings up all of these ideas of worth and value, etc. Because that's an area in me. If I'm struggling with it, that's an area for me to see. The universe is not cruel. It's not unkind. It's not a game where, you know, we have to try to fight everybody out here about who and what we are. It's when we know that we are valuable, that we have value, that we have worth, that our self-esteem can't be rocked by anybody else's activity or their thoughts or their behaviors, whatever they're doing. When we understand ourselves at that level, we're in a whole 1144, we're in a whole separate game. We're into the divine matrix, and we're not out here trying to fight for what is right, or fight for our value, or fight to prove to people that, well, you can't do that to me. You know, we have to start somewhere though. And so my friend, I just closed the conversation with her and I said, well, I think you're a champion and I'm very proud of you. You know, that maybe you'll be able to, you know, really think about that later and drop the seed that I'm not there to water that garden. I'm not there to harvest the fruits or the vegetables that come out of that harvest if it's not ever harvested. However, dropping the seeds of kindness, dropping the seeds of awareness and understanding and observation from a higher perspective is never unkind. It's never wrong. However, to continue to cast pearls before swine, if you will, is not a useful practice either, because there are other people who may find that those seeds far more valuable to them. So it's not that, you know, I refuse to talk to my friend, or I refuse to, you know, help her or anybody at all. It's a matter of how much time am I going to be willing. If somebody's not willing to see the best of themselves, they're not going to see the best of me. And that's a relationship that's already kind of at a deficit, and it's always going to require, in order for me to feel comfortable, to try to tell another person, no, I see something better in you. And if it turns into that, that's the codependency in that old system. We're still in the old matrix system. And the new matrix, the divine matrix, really calls for us to do something better than that, to break through all of that mind programming, to update, you know, get to the new update of iOS me. This is the greatest version that I can be. Here it is right here. And step forward with as much courage as we have that we can bring, and we grow that courage by saying, you know, I can drop into the toilet very easily. How about I grow some courage? And if for 2 minutes, if that's what I can do, if for 1 minute, commit to amount of time that for 1 minute, I'm going to say positive things to myself. I'm going to feel very appreciative and grateful for those things. Well, I'm not grateful for this. Well, what are you grateful for? You know, that's how we grow those steps towards the sovereignty and spiritual independence that we all deserve and already have within divinity. We are not lacking in that at all. Where we lack is the coordination and the correspondence and the communication between us and our divine. It's not a matter that it isn't there. It's on the other side waiting for us to connect with it, and it doesn't connect by staying stuck in a flat track going around and around and around saying, well, that's just terrible. And I understand it. It's very easy for us to go there because things do look tragic. They look horrible. However, they're certainly not going to get any better by continuing to talk about how horrible it is. So ceasing those conversations early, giving people the seeds of information. If you want to harvest that, feel free. If you don't, then it'll sit there until you do water it, because kindness is never lost. The energy of high vibrational intention is never lost on people. It just might take, you know, more lifetimes, more time on deck here, wherever it is, then I'm going to see actually propagate itself out here. However, it's not an unkindness to walk away when people are really showing me that they don't play in the same way. That's fine, no problem. I can end the conversation. I don't necessarily have to end the friendship, just that conversation. And if it becomes becomes a pattern, and that is a pattern that is not evolving, then that's when Kate needs to be questioning heavily 1515, why am I here and what can I do? Because I can sit in that toilet believing that I'm here to save people. I am not. That's where Kate needed to take a definite time out and say, yeah, I don't want to see people suffer. I really don't. However, I'm not in control of other people's suffering. I'm only in control of mine. And my suffering, I cannot allow that to be to watch other people slam their heads into walls and not want the help. People that want help more actively are really where I like to spend my time. However, it doesn't mean that every single one of us doesn't have the ability or the desire to be assisted in understanding these energies. This is complicated stuff. We're going through a lot of changes, and we're asking people to break open their minds in places that's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. We're coming out of generational curses. We're coming out of themes across the globe that have been horrific. We've been in the age of Pisces, really drilled down in deep, dark, and dirty stuff for a very long time. So it's a bit much to ask people to crawl up out of that and spring to, a brand new understanding. However, we do have to be on our way for me to sit around and play, because there are other people who are there to do that work. I just know for me very clearly that if a person is seeming like they're asking for help, or they're seeming to ask me to join them in their apathy or their victimization, that's a slippery slope, because I don't want to be an enabler any more than I want to be a victim. It keeps that same cycle back there, the age of Pisces, the old matrix, keeps that activated, and that's the last thing I want to do. So I'm here saying that I'm here to alchemize, and I'm here as a light worker, a truth walker, etc., whatever labels I give myself. If I say I'm into that, then I need to be committed to that, and to remind myself and cut short and out of conversations where it's not serving, where it's helping to perpetuate the cycle, and then debrief myself heavily about what can I be doing differently in my life. What do I need to do to power down on any place that felt self-esteem issues with, I couldn't help her. There's nothing to do with that, Kate. What can you do to get in touch with your team there, boo, and stay connected to the divine matrix and allow the old matrix to do what it does, which is to wander around aimlessly in some places and let it go and figure itself out. And anywhere that I'm not called to be, then that's the place where I will not be. But that comes from listening very carefully to the guidance within me and not allowing anybody out here to knock my self-esteem, my value, or my worth by either accepting my help and misusing it or refusing it, either way. So take care of yourself. I hope that's been helpful to you in some way, and I hope that you enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in, my friend. Get within your skin, because you're divine. Oh my goodness, it is absolutely, absolutely beautiful, gorgeous, and totally fine despite all the weirdness that's happening everywhere. It's okay. We can reach inside and find divine. Divine is stable. It's true and true, and it never, never, never leaves you. However, we check out of those conversations pretty routinely, so call your team. They're waiting for you. Take care, and I'll talk to you again soon. Mwah. Goodbye.